In my last video, I talked about the new Netflix series Arcane and what enthralled me about it. From its story, the world, animation, it was just a incredible experience. And I teased in there that I would do a spoiler video if the response was there, if people wanted to see that. And the response was there. I'm a bit of a smaller channel, so when I see a response like this, I just, you know what? If the people want it, then I'm gonna deliver. So this is going to be a spoiler video of the League of Legends series Arcane, which just released on Netflix a few weeks ago. If you haven't watched Arcane, don't really know anything about Arcane, then you should watch my first video on the topic where I go all into that in a spoiler-free sense and tell you why you should watch this show and how great it is, because it's an amazing show. Highly recommend it. But in this video, past this point, I'm going to assume you've seen Arcane, and I am not going to explain anything to you. I'm not going to go over story details. I am going to expect that you know what I'm talking about, so we can just all come at this from the same perspective. I think the best place to start here would be going back to my original Arcane video, where I mentioned that Arcane had some cliches in its story. Just a bunch of cliches that kind of was the basis of a lot of characters' stories. Like, take Jace. Jace is a bit of an arrogant but very intelligent scientist who has their own vision for the future and is going to do what they want no matter what anybody else says. Victor's eventual story becomes a Faustian tale, making a deal with a kind of devil, doing something that he knows is not entirely right to extend his waning life. Vi and Caitlyn together are a buddy cop turned romance. These aren't new stories. Like I said in my original video, and like I'm gonna reiterate here, that's okay. It's okay to have stories that are cliche, at least at the beginning. But I want to point this all out. I feel like it's relevant because it makes part 2 feel like the weakest segments. Episodes 4 and 5, I think, drag a little bit here, especially with Vi and Caitlyn's journey in the underground. I didn't find that section of the story to be very compelling. Like, there are fun sequences that occur in there, there are things that we learn, and there are things we explore about Vi, who is a very interesting character, as opposed to Caitlyn, who is a very boring character for the majority of it. Like, I don't know, they feel underutilized, underdeveloped. I really like Vi's story. They really dig into that character and her understandable, justifiable rage at the people around her and the life that she's in. With Caitlyn, though, I don't know. I don't care about her story that much. Maybe it's because she's a rich kid who decided the best thing to do with her time would be to be a cop. So, maybe that's the problem. But conversely, in talking about things that did mesh, let's talk about Silco. Silco was an incredibly surprising character. When they first showed up as a gang boss with a facial scar, I don't know, I figured they would be just a kind of one-note villain, but they were anything but that. Their relationship with Jinx and the world at large is incredibly interesting. He's a character who really seems on the face of it to be someone just in it for himself, in it for whatever he can gain for themselves, But you see in him some kind of actual ethos, some kind of actual belief, which of course makes them a more interesting character. They genuinely feel like they want to make the world that they live in better, the underworld, in some way. Though, their way of doing it doesn't work. And he floods the area with drugs, has children working in his drug factories, and what he does in raising powder into Jinx is just tragic. He takes a child who needed to be encouraged, who needed to be given a lot of help and care, and gave her a gun and made her a weapon. And I think Silco loves Jinx, really genuinely loves Jinx. Obviously, through their actions, I think they love Jinx and see her as a daughter and think that they are doing their best for her. But as an actual parent, no, they aren't. Their relationship is inherently toxic. Silco himself is an inherently toxic, evil person. And I see people glorifying Silco in a lot of ways and glorifying him and Jinx's relationship when it's not healthy. It's not a healthy relationship. Neither of these people are healthy. Silco is the last person who should be raising a child, even if he genuinely cares for them. Especially in the final moments, you can see it when he's trying to convince Jinx to join him to push away her sister and move forward with him and with Zaun. You can think that he may genuinely think that's what's best for her, and it's also best for him. But no matter what, is that really what's best for her? Like, objectively, is that the best thing? To take someone who's clearly breaking and to push them further and further away from their family and loved ones? and to break them further and engage them more into violence and control and power, and not dealing with the massive amount of trauma that they have in their past. Because no one lets Jinx deal with her trauma. No one helps her in dealing with her trauma. Vi attempts to over and over again because they are sisters, and she's doing her best to try to help Jinx in the ways that she can, but she's not able to get through to them. And that's through years and years of being around Silco, around being, told that you have to move past the people who betrayed you to make this your life going forward. It broke her. So whether Silco genuinely loved Jinx or not is irrelevant. The result of it is trauma. And from a storytelling perspective, from a writing perspective, that is so beautifully well told. I could see honest, genuine criticism of the writing, criticizing it for, glorifying this kind of relationship between Silco and Jinx, or not, making it more clear of how toxic their relationship is. I feel like it was pretty clear, but I think engaging the reaction people around this show who watched it and had, saw this as a loving, truly loving relationship maybe throws up a few red flags, but I don't think that's the writer's fault. I don't personally share that criticism, but I could see it as a genuine one people could have. Moving on from Silco though, there's a whole bunch of characters that I could go into detail how much I love them and how well written they are. And with that discussion of Silco, I think it's important to then talk about Vander. Vander as a character is very much, cares for the people of the underground, I think more genuinely. While Silco, I think, believes that he cares about the people in the underworld, I don't think he genuinely does, because of all the things he does to make the underworld worse under his rule. All the things he does for money, power, just their philosophies are so very different, and I think Vander's love is more genuine and more actually helpful to the people around him. And that's true also for him as a parent. If you contrast Vander to Silco, Vander is not the perfect father, but he does care more about making his surrogate children feel like they have their own lives, caring more about what they want and who they want to grow up into, making sure they don't grow up into him. Vander is not interested in continuing the cycles of violence that have gone on before him. This is made incredibly clear in the first scene of Arcane, where he chooses to take these children away from this bridge of death and take them back home and in this war that they had been on. Because he sees that in the end, he does not see his children as weapons, as tools, as soldiers in his fight. He wants anything but that. He wants to keep them as far away from that kind of life as possible, to have it so they have their own lives. As opposed to Silco, who wants Jinx to be just like him. Jinx is a mirror for Silco, and that is what he loves so much. Vander's goals are to protect what he has, to protect the people he cares about, to protect the people in his world, to protect the people of the underground. That is what he cares about most, while Silco, I think, values power the most. Whether or not he recognizes it as that or not, that is what he is valuing. Because for all the talk Silco has about wanting to make Zaun an independent country, to bring them the actual life that these people deserve, he makes the material conditions for the people he lives with, the people he is around, worse, because he is not of the people. Vander talks with everyone around him. He connects with people in the underworld. Silco sees them as underlings, as pawns, as people who are to do his bidding. Those are the key differences between those characters, and no one beats you over the head and tells you that. You see it night and day. You see it as the story goes on, and it's absolutely marvelously done. And the more you think about the story, the more brilliant you kind of realize it is. How much it tells you based off of just visuals instead of characters just explaining, and Silco treats us like this, and Vander treated us like that. There's no scene where they look you in the eyes and tell you what these characters are. You have to think about it, you have to talk about it, you have to explore that on your own, and I think that's beautiful. It really is. Mel had a very similar feel to me as well. Mel had she felt like she was gonna be a typical Temptress character, someone who sees someone powerful and seduces them into accepting more power and building up and corrupting them, corrupting Jace to be a tool for her to use. And she's not that. She is not that at all. She is much more deep and much more thoughtful than that. She is, of course, manipulating Jace in a number of ways, but she's trying to push him into seeing the world from her point of view. But she's not some evil spider weaving a web to trap him in. She is a thoughtful character who is doing what she thinks is best for pilt over in general, and thinking that if she is able to push him in the right direction, they can all make a amount of money and just make the world a better place together. And I think that's really her genuine thought process. She's not trying to push him into becoming a warlord or anything like that, or anything cartoonishly evil. She obviously pushes back in a lot of cases against violence, against some kind of, more rash actions that Jace wants to take. She pushes him in a direction, and Jace goes further on his own. Now, Jace as a character is very, very interesting. If this was a lesser story, Jace would be the protagonist, and this would be kind of like a pseudo Iron Man story. But in the hands of these writers, who are very smart, more nuanced than that. I've seen people online compare Jace to Elon Musk, which is first off completely inaccurate because Elon Musk doesn't invent jack shit, while, Jace is a brilliant scientist. But of course, the way he markets himself as a great inventor is very much Tony Stark-like. And like Tony Stark in the Avengers, he has a very clear goal to want to help people. Like, I think Jace genuinely wants to help people, genuinely wants to make the lives of the people in the underworld better, wants to bring them up. He has this idea of wanting to be a hand guiding down to them, to rise them up from, their menial labor. But Jace is a flawed character. For one thing, he's classist, and he doesn't know that he's classist. But I think he is in the way that a lot of Americans are. To be clear off the jump here, I'm a white American, but when you talk to other white Americans, you hear a lot of, we need to do things for the poor and to bring other people up, and then you're actually faced with those people, what they want, and their anger and frustrations at the situations that they're in, and there is this impulse to repel back, to get angry at their demands, even though you acknowledge that their demands are valid. Like, Jace knows that these people have it much worse than he does. Jace knows that he can do a lot to help them, and he wants to do things to help them. When faced with those issues, like a lot of people from privileged positions, he recoils at it. And that's brilliant. That's so brilliant. And Victor is so great at doing this. When Jace has that moment about talking about people from the underworld, and Victor's like, I'm from the underworld, I'm from there too. It's kind of like a thing that triggers in the set, like, oh, I'm being an asshole, aren't I? But regardless of that, he goes out and he tries to take action with Vi and ends up killing a kid. And the reaction to that kid's death, another really great moment, because I loved how Jace had one reaction, which was to recoil, to be like, oh God, what have I done? I've actually killed someone myself. And Vi's, on the other hand, like, yeah, that sucks a kid died, but, your actions have caused a lot of kids to die that you really don't think about, so, if we don't do anything, more kids are gonna die. Vi is right. She's right. Like, even if it's really, really horrible that you're dealing with this in your face, Vi has a really clear point that, his actions, the people of the overworld's actions, by fact of him being a member of the upper society, being on the council, his actions directly lead to the suffering of these children. Whether he directly wants them to or not, they do. He is in a position of power. He has to accept that responsibility. But when he's faced with doing it himself, that's when he recoils and says, oh, we gotta just hand over everything to Silco. And I don't like that they wanted to hand everything over to the megalomaniac who was obviously going to turn into a probable dictator, further exploiting the people around him who had no real clear intention of wanting to help the people of Zon, no matter how much he says so. As I've said over and over again, Silco taking control of the underworld made the material conditions for the everyday person worse. Turning the underworld into Zon, giving it to Silco, giving all of this to Silco and his entire group, it would only make things worse. But that's Jace's best solution because he doesn't want to go into war. And of course, a war isn't a good solution either, because how many people are gonna die because of that? And that's the brilliance of the writing. That is the absolute brilliance of the writing. There's so many more things they could get into. I really love Victor. He has a Faustian story. I think, the trials he goes through are really beautiful and tragic and sad. And I'm really excited to see where they continue going with these characters. Every time I sit down to talk about Arcane, I just realize that there's so much more I want to talk about. So much more I could dig into, but I can't make these videos much longer. I just can't. So I'm gonna try to wrap this up here. If you made it to the end, welcome to my actual really hot takes that I'm hiding people who only watch the beginning. The intro song sucks, and it was really cringe that they put Imagine Dragons in the actual show itself. I know people in the League of Legends community love Imagine Dragons for some reason. I don't know. Warriors is a bad song. Enemy is a bad song. I don't like. This is my taste. This is just my taste. Okay, I want to clarify. It's my taste. I don't like Imagine Dragons. Not my kind of band. Not my kind of music. I don't hold it against the show at all for doing that. It's a community thing. I get it. It's fine. But we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you very much for coming out. If you're tempted to play League of Legends after this, just know it's a terrible game. Worst MOBA. Play Smite instead. Best MOBA. I'm sorry. This is also the secret part of the video, even deeper in than the Imagine Dragons takes, where you find out that I only play Smite. That's my MOBA of choice. I don't like League of Legends at all. Terrible game. Don't play it. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really appreciate the huge response I got on my last one. I love everyone who gave this a like, everyone who gave it a comment. If you listened all the way through the video, you know, tell me my hot takes are garbage if you want. I don't know. Be sure to subscribe because I got a whole bunch of videos coming out in the future on different topics that I am really excited about. I mainly cover anime, but I also cover different topics, a lot of stuff about animated shows, because I love talking about animation in general. So be sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos similar to this, and thank you very much. I want you to have a great day, a great night, or whatever it is you're having, and stay rad.